Hello, you amazing people. Welcome back to RX Memes. Thank you so much to the first 3 commenters in my last video and today's comment of the day, which made me laugh. You had some pretty interesting names in the last story time or story. So today's I want to do something different, which is going to be, which space object are you? I am a hypothetical icy nebula, which sounds really interesting. Leave yours in the comments below and let me know what kind of space object you are. And without further ado, let's get into today's pro revenge. A complete lack of foresight. To preface, the scenario involves my roommate, let's call her Callie, her ex, let's call him Tweaky McGee, myself, Tweaky's fling Nikki, and my roommate's dog, an adorable blue-nosed Pitty. Let's go with Derpy. Keep in mind, I myself am 25, Callie is 25 as well, but Tweaky McGee is 19. This will be relevant later. TLDR at the bottom, this is a long one. Now this story begins with my roommate. She had just gotten out of an exhausting but not necessarily abusive relationship, and she was on the lookout for something casual while she regained her independence and reclaimed her life. Unfortunately, Tweaky McGee came around and made himself at home in our house. At first it wasn't too bad. We were all moderate stoners, and he knew the right people, so it seemed like a fair give and take considering we didn't pay for much smoke throughout the time he was essentially squatting, but he put forth nothing when it came to groceries and bills. Now my roommate was far enough removed from her previous relationship at this point to be fiercely protective of her independence. But given the age difference, she chalked up some glaringly obvious red flags when they began to present. Tweaky got his pet name for a number of reasons, but the main one was this. He had an Adderall prescription, 20 mg. As he was prescribed the meds, he chomped on quite a few, but it quickly spiraled into a 10 pill per day habit. First, he was just chomping, but began to snort them off our living room table after about 2 weeks. As his habit progressed, Callie also partook, as she has a very demanding job and the extra energy helped her through her 70-hour weeks. I believe this is another reason why she put up with it as long as she did. As their relationship progressed, the oh-so-common side effects of stimulant abuse began to creep onto both of them. Irritability, poor short-term memory, inability to accurately communicate emotions and thoughts. Since I did my best to stay out of their relationship, as it's not my place to interfere in something I know her to be smart and mature enough to handle, I never really got involved. But she and I had many deep conversations while he was out on runs. I felt like our talks were making headway until one day, Tweaky McGee got a bug in his ass and started impetuously bringing up the idea of getting a dog. Keep in mind, we live in a college town, and while we're both out of school, we work full-time in a very small 2-bedroom house. She was apprehensive at first since she was already going through the motions of cutting him off, but she had also wanted a dog for years at this point. After 2 weeks of Callie and Tweaky visiting various shelters, they decided on Derpy. Derpy was an absolutely adorable 6-month-old blue-nosed pit bull with one of the most prominent personalities I have ever seen in a dog. My family used to train dogs professionally. Incredibly playful, super smart, and the perfect demeanor for a small house with a bigger backyard. Now, only being your friendly neighborhood stoner and not partaking in the speedy delights, I saw it for what it was, but she was blinded by the adorable pup. Tweaky knew that Callie was setting the stage to kick his ass to the curb and thought that a dog was the perfect ball and chain for the situation, but his age and addiction caught up with him. All the paperwork and payments were made in Callie's name, including the registration paperwork, initial vet visits, professional pet sitters, toys, etc. Since she works incredibly long hours, and Tweaky essentially being a bum, he got the thought in his head that the dog was his, and when push came to shove, he could keep him. Well, the day of reckoning came after about 3 weeks of escalating early morning arguments and general irritation, and while I was at work, the breakup finally happened. Cops ended up being called, but no blows were thrown. Tweaky packed all his shit up and drove it back to his mother's, then came back, told Callie he was leaving, and took Derpy with him. At this time, the cops that showed up had no idea what had been transpiring and let him walk off with the dog. Less than 24 hours later, Callie had made so many calls to the police department, lawyers, pet advocacy groups that she had her course of action laid out. After the filing was complete, she was beyond paranoid because of the threat of retaliation. I'm a pretty big dude, 6'4", 235, so I knew I could stand my ground, but she's a tiny little thing and I have a full-time job. In my state, any disputes regarding animals are to be settled in civil court and the pets are treated as property. Now I don't know about y'all, but pets are family and do not deserve to be treated on the same basis as property. The next day, she had filed a civil suit in an attempt to get Derpy back. At her first court date, she presented all of the evidence of her ownership of Derpy, as well as the resources she has available to her in order to provide the best level of care for the pup. Tweaky countered with a slew of baseless accusations, essentially claiming that she had been abusive to Derpy, false, and that she doesn't have the time nor resources to properly take care of him, also false. Unfortunately, the civil court system tends to draw these things out. The court eventually ruled in her favor and ordered Tweaky to return Derpy, but when the cops turned up, apparently Derpy had ran away. Before this, she was only trying to get Derpy back and not really seeking any financial compensation or punishment. By this time, approximately 2 months after the breakup, which is bullshit on its own, he had already been in and out of a relationship with another woman, Nikki. Nikki had been around and heard about the courtship, but didn't know the other party. Once she found out it was Callie who Tweaky had fucked over, she started messaging Callie telling her a bunch of info about Derpy as they were friends back in the day. It turns out that in the time since the breakup, Tweaky had been staying with his mother, an honest-to-goodness hoarder with about 10 square feet of usable space in her apartment. Tweaky was also unable to take Derpy out on walks or pup playdates due to the fact that there was still a return order for Derpy. One day, he took Derpy to his dealer's house, who also has 2 pitties of his own. However, Derpy is in his teenage stage and began, getting fresh with one of the other pits and ended up getting pretty brutally attacked. Since the return order was still in effect and the info about him and the dog was given to every vet within 50 miles, he couldn't take him to get treatment. Tweaky also made a deal with his dealer to essentially pimp out Nikki, which was one of the many reasons she was on our side. Upon hearing this, Callie, now off the uppers and much more clear-headed, absolutely fucking lost it. She went to her lawyer to see if there was anything she could do to expedite the return of Derpy. Turns out she had a few options. Cut to today, Tweaky has officially been charged with felony theft and animal abuse neglect charges, and they're wrapping up the legal process with pleas and other legal whatnot. He faces up to 8 years in prison, and if he doesn't return Derpy within 1 week from today, he will receive the maximum sentence. There is also a separate case in the works from Nikki regarding the whole shady pimping shit he tried to pull, as well as, unsurprisingly, charges for possession manufacturing with intent to distribute meth and cocaine. Part of me feels bad for him because he absolutely nuked the rest of his life at such a young age. But Callie and I both know that he wasn't going to get any better regardless. He had his chance and he squandered it. I can find you too. This is a story of my cousin. He used to work as a parking officer a few years ago. The following story happened to him and his response seemed befitting to this subreddit. One day my cousin was off shift and in his civilian clothing. He was simply shopping for groceries at the supermarket that evening. Once he left the supermarket, he went back to his car and loaded the trunk with his groceries. He proceeded to put the key in the ignition and start the car. Before he was able to exit his parking space, he got blocked by another car meaning to stop him from leaving his parking spot. Then comes out a guy who was trying to confront my cousin, knocked on his window and ordered him to step out of the vehicle, while flashing a badge. Turns out he is an undercover cop in civilian clothes, driving in an unmarked vehicle. My cousin complied and stepped out. "Seems that you have quite a beast of a ride there, my friend." "It's only a family SUV, officer." "I'm not quite sure about that. I heard some unusual sounds from your engine as you pull over. I suspected you might have installed some illegal performance modifications on your vehicle." "I assure you I haven't. My car is in perfect stock condition." "Well, I had to make sure, so I waited for you until you got back and turned the ignition again. And I do believe there might be a few modifications to your car now that I heard it again." "I'm pretty confident that I did not install any modifications on my car. Feel free to check under the hood." My cousin pops the hood open. "Well, what do we have here? You modified your air intake system." "That's a stock intake. What makes you even think this is a modified one?" And now my cousin is starting to get pissed at him and questioning his competence at what he is claiming to know. "Look, dude, I'm not sure you even know what you're talking about here." "Oh, I know. I knew it since I heard your unusual engine. I know you're packing. Why would anyone even modify a family SUV like it was a street race car?
I don't know, you tell me. Anyway, I'm issuing you a ticket for this.
You are issuing me a ticket for something you clearly are not experienced in? Look, buddy, you are trying to plant fictional modifications in my car and I have the hood wide open for you. So please drop the act or call in another officer who has more experience than you in these matters.
I don't think that's necessary. I'm pretty confident your air intake is modified, and I am experienced enough in these matters.
The jerk officer now proceeds to head back to his car to grab the ticket book. This is where the sweet revenge starts. Cousin is furious and decides to retaliate. Cousin heads back to his car as well to grab his own ticket book. When they were facing each other again, the jerk was surprised to see a ticket book in Cousin's hand.
What is happening here?
I'm writing you a ticket too.
Wait, you're an officer too? And what are you writing me for?
Yes, I'm a parking officer. I'm writing a ticket for illegal parking in a driveway and obstructing a parking space and the exit of other vehicles.
I'm not doing that. I'm right here by my car and I'm available to move it out of the way. I'm only obstructing your exit to carry out my duty until I issue a violation.
You're not allowed to do that unless you are in a government vehicle.
This is a government vehicle.
It's not. It's a civilian car with a public license plate. Sorry, the government vehicle exemption doesn't apply to you in this case. The fine is coming out of your pockets, buddy.
I'm just going to appeal to court about this then. The government will just waive your ticket.
You try to do that, buddy. If it works, you are welcome to come back to me and spit in my face. Here's what's going to happen. You take your ticket to court. You plead not guilty on account that I can't find a government vehicle. The rules for undercover cops is that if they are in unmarked vehicles, they are fully responsible for any accidents or violations as long as you have your sirens hidden and dispatch haven't sent you, which is true in my country. The car is currently treated as a civilian car since those conditions don't apply. Therefore, you are responsible for this violation. As for my ticket, I'm going to appeal to court as well. The court will assign another experienced officer to inspect my car. Since I'm confident that I didn't modify my car in any way and you're full of shit, I'm getting this ticket waived. This will also possibly get reported and posted in your file at your police station for falsifying violations. My guess is that you are just trying to fill a ticket quota for a promotion or something. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is you fucked with the wrong guy. The jerk officer's face was reddening with anger, and my cousin shoved his ticket in his hand and tried to grab this one out of his. Jerk was reluctant in handing out the ticket, seeing that the outcome was going to backfire at him. So my cousin yanked it out of his hand and went inside his vehicle. My cousin rolls down the window. If you will excuse me now, I need you to move your vehicle. I have a wife and a baby son waiting to be fed. Jerk was mumbling as he walks to his vehicle, while my cousin left smiling. Alright everybody, that's it for today's video. I hope that you liked it, and I will see you in the next one. As always, my socials are on the screen somewhere if you want to touch base. I love to hear from you, and I will see you in tonight's video. Bye!